So hi everybody, good afternoon if you're in Israel or in Europe. Good morning if you're in the US. We're very happy to be here with you. My name is Efrat Fenigson. I'm the Vice President of Marketing at Mindspace and also the co-founder of Israel's community of CMOs, global CMOs. And with me, Perry, he'll introduce himself for a sec. I'll say thank you to Mindspace. We're putting together this platform called Virtual, where we host online and virtual events, and we have a lot of useful information for our customers and members. It's all online on our website, so you're welcome to join all the different activities on a daily basis. So this is part of Virtual, this webinar that we're doing now. And yeah, Perry, please introduce yourself.
Thanks, Efrat, and thanks for inviting me on. Hope to share and learn alike. So I'm Perry. I'm the CEO of Penguin Strategies. We're a startup, global startup marketing agency. We're based both in the U.S. and in Israel, where I am right now, and we provide a broad, basically provide a strategy, marketing services, and marketing technology services to tech companies to help them achieve their growth.
Wonderful. So maybe just before we start, we give you a quick poll that we made here on Zoom. Let's see if that works. So this poll, I'm sharing it with you. You'll see it now. Oh. Not this. There we go. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Good. So this poll is for you guys to tell us if, I don't know, 10 seconds it will take you if you're from a B2B or B2C company, and if you're running online events already or this is your beginning. That would give us a good idea of, you know, the kind of audience we have here. Great. I know some people are watching us on Facebook Live as well. So if you're watching us on Facebook Live and you want to interact with us, you want to ask questions or chat with us, then I invite you to come onto Zoom and use the chat room. So you can ask us anything and we will answer in the end. And you can also use our polls, which it looks like it's working, right? So what do we have here? B2B mostly at the moment, winning. 75%, B2C the rest, and NGO equal. And then we have most people not running any online events. Interesting. And some of them have started just now during Corona time. So it's a good place to learn how to do it more effectively, I guess.
Good, then we have what to talk about.
Okay, good. I will share the results with you in a minute when everyone answers, and then everyone can see this. Okay, let's leave it open for a sec. And just before we dive into the details, we're going to talk today about the ins and outs of online and virtual marketing. And I asked Perry to join me because I thought both of us can give interesting perspectives on how we do it, each in their domain. So before we start, I want to show you this quick slide that will, hold on, there we go. That will cover what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to start by looking at the strategy. The why I need that tool that's called online virtual events. We're going to talk about goals and how we put together that strategy. And then we'll talk about the 3 phases: the before the event, during the event, and after the event. We structured it in that way so that it's quite clear in which phase we're talking about each consideration or principle, right? So that's what we'll start with. And Perry, I've got the first question for you. You ready?
Yeah, before you ask me, is it? I saw that someone's asking, and I'm sure it's people want to see the results of what the
Oh,
poll.
yeah, end poll,
Thank you,
which is
Frank, for reminding us.
okay.
Uh,
There's a bit of lag, so bear with me.
let's see if you can press on the button and ask me the question at the same time.
Oh, I can, but why is it's not ending the poll? The poll wants to live forever. Here we go. Share results. Can you see
Very
it?
cool. Very cool. Now I see it.
Okay, good. Good. So you can see most people are from B2B and most people haven't ran any online events in the past. So it's like we got like a beginners to a mediocre type of audience in terms of the experience you've got with online events. So we will cover some of the basics as well. Good. Okay, we got the results. Go back to the slide.
Let's go. Start
All
with the
right.
first question, and someone already asked if we're going to share the recording, and I imagine you will. But
All right. So my first question to you, Perry, is what type, let's put some order into things. What types of events online do you see and how do you differentiate them? Because I think we hear about many different types, right?
yes, so we can define them in I think in a number of ways. One of them is the length of the event, and one of the things we will I'm sure touch on is what's the difference between, for example, what we're doing here and a typical webinar,
Yeah.
and I think that the length is an important element of that. When I've started to see a lot more longer online events, full day events, multi-hour events that have tracks, keynotes, things like that. It really comes down to what we talk about the strategy is the why. What's the purpose of what you're doing? Is it just plain education? Is it are you trying to generate leads? Or is it something you're going to do on a regular basis? Is this a one-time thing? Those are the types of questions that we once we start answering them, we can give better advice onto how the production should go, or some of the other questions.
I see some people using virtual conferences, like day-long conferences that have ready-made platforms for it, and there's a lot of investment in the content behind them. So I think there's a range, like in everything, you have a range of different types of events, ranging from short social media snippets where you can go live on Facebook or live on Instagram and do something short and quick and very engaging, all the way through to a whole day event or even 2 days events, similar to what you've done before. So I think that tool of online events can be taken to answer different goals and different strategies, which is what we'll cover next. But I also want to add that yesterday I had an interesting discussion with someone that the physical dimension that we all know in events is unlike digital, and it's something that I think is very hard to replicate in a digital format. However, there are two things that have to continue to exist in these days that we're in. And the first one is the human need for connection. People want to learn, they want to experience things together, they want to have joint experiences. And the second thing is marketing. Marketing has to continue, of products, of companies, of brands. And because of that, I think online events have to occur at the moment, even though they're not giving you the same experience and the same feeling of an offline event. You just have to acknowledge and realize that it's something else. It's a different tool, and it's got its own, rules and its own persona, and you have to treat it in that way. But it's a replacement for now, and I think that a lot of the people that are with us here and a lot of the marketeers that we're speaking to are seeing that they're starting off by adopting online events now during Corona time. They will continue later because it's a marketing tool, just like many others, that is very useful. And it's unlike a physical event, but it's something else that it's worth to be exposed to it right now, I think.
Absolutely. I think if we read the poll correctly, and just thinking that most of the people that are, or the marketers that we're talking to are, marketers or people working at B2B companies, I don't think that they're looking, they might be looking for ways to, what were they using physical events for, and how can they adjust their, how can they use virtual events in a way to replace that? So if we look at, I don't think we can expect that a B2B company, if you're developing a technology of some sort, to go and put together a industry event, and with booths and all the things that we all the bells and whistles that we're used to. That's something for the industry event people to figure out and then maybe invite us to. And I think we're starting to see some of that. They're trying to figure out how to do that and how to monetize it. But as a, and then once they figure that out, then if we wait, we don't want to wait for that. We want to be able to get out in front of it and be a little bit more innovative. And so we want to create these smaller events. And I think most of the customers and most of the companies that we're talking to that are on this are kind of trying to figure out how to create light. Think about them more like meetups.
Yeah.
Think about this as more of a meetup, and how can we pull the right people to come and talk to us and interact with us, and how can we make it interactive, as we'll talk about afterwards. But so if the purpose is, again, it's about that why. Why are you putting it on? I think it comes down. There's two big ones. One is we want to engage with our existing customers. I think now is a time where you're seeing a lot of companies making sure that they're engaging with their existing customers. I imagine that's one of the reasons why Mindspace put together this platform, or they want to attract new customers, and there might be an opportunity to attract new types of customers that you might not have before when you were relying more on the physical type of events. So there's those two differentiators, and you need to adjust your events or your strategy based on that.
So if we're touching on strategy, Perry, you told me before about the example of one of your customers in India, and when we talked about strategy. Can you give that example?
Right. So after we had put on so I'm just going to give a little bit of a backstory. Try not to be, not too much about it, but a week, 2 weeks ago, we put together and we put on a what I would call as an almost full day event, a 6-hour event, as an experiment for ourselves because we've been putting on webinars and multi-hour events for a while, but we never really put on a whole, this long event type thing, and it's kind of snowballed into that. And as we learned a lot from it, we started sharing it with our customers and talking to them about it. And one of the insightful conversations I had is because I was very excited about the event, and the marketers that we were talking to were having really excited about it. And we went to talk to the CEO of this company, and we said, well, listen, we're all excited about putting on this big event. And then the CEO stopped us with the why question, and said, well, I'm not looking to put on a huge event for the industry. I needed to continue with what I'm working on. And one of the main things I was working on just as this hit us was penetrating the Indian market. So now that we knew the why is we want to continue the penetration to the Indian market. Now we want to figure out how we use virtual events to further that, and how do we create a something between a meetup to a 2-hour event to get the right people in the room to continue the conversation. And that was really an eye opener for me as well, as we continue to kind of go further in this virtual event process.
That's cool. And with Penguin, why did you put together your big event last week or the week before?
Yeah, it started really from the vantage point of we have been putting on quarterly meetups for the better part of the last 6 years. And, that being said, I said, okay, well, we're going to continue doing it. And that's how the thinking started. We're going to put on usually it's a 2 or 3 hour meetup. So we decided originally to put on a 2-hour meetup. And what was really exciting is that we were able to get speakers that we could only have dreamed of before, that were willing to join us. Our first speaker that signed up was the CMO of HubSpot, which for us was a very big name. To get him to travel out to Israel and spend a couple of hours at a meetup was a little bit long on the task and on our customer, even though he's done it before. But so this was a great initial start. And then right after that, we had big name VCs wanted to join us, and G-CMO jumped in and brought us 5 or 6 really top CMOs. And all of a sudden, we had enough content for 6 hours. So what started as a meetup, and the purpose, the why, was to continue the education that we were providing to the market. Turned into something a little bit more, which was not only to continue educating our existing customer base and our ecosystem, was actually turned into something that was that ended up generating leads that we hadn't even expected.
Right. In our case, in Mindspace case, I think it's very, very simple. Our strategy with launching this online events platform is really retention of our customers, making sure that we give them value and we educate them during this time where our core value proposition is disturbed. So for us, it was very simple, very clear, and we went to action quite fast about it. So let me click here and get us to the next, there we go, the next section, the before section. So let's talk about everything that we need to take into consideration before. Perry, what's the first step you take when you look at running an online event? So here, I gave you some clues.
So I think once we know the why, then we can start figuring out what kind of value we want to bring. A lot of times it starts with the content, and which might be a fancier way of saying we need an anchor piece of content, and sometimes that's an anchor somebody that's a thought leader in the space, or somebody that will also attract the right people to your event. So that's the content and that initial speaker or speakers to kind of to decide, and the format. Is also is what you're going to do. So this is a panel format. We also that was the format that we did in our event, but a lot of events are based around sharing information where someone smart gets up and tells people, this is the way you should do it, and here's the tips that you need to do tomorrow when you get back to your office. So it's figuring out the content and making sure you have that kind of set. It doesn't have to be set in stone. Like I gave you the example before, was we had something, and if opportunities present themselves, then great, you can provide more value in creating that, and then selecting, once you've got that, you can start slotting in your timeline. Also, what time of day do you want it at? With virtual now, you've got the world is at your fingertips, right? If we do it at 4 o'clock, we can cover the Europe and parts of the US. But if you want to get the whole US, you might have to do it later in the day. So you have to kind of think about that from a timeline and perspective. It's where your market is, what kind of value you want to bring, and then finally, how do you decide what technology you're going to use? Like we're using Zoom here. If we were to do a multi-hour with lots of different panels and we want to break off rooms, we couldn't be using Zoom. So we'd have to think of another platform potentially, and that other questions come up.
Right, and I think that in terms of replicability and scalability, what we wrote here, when you plan, you want to ask yourself whether this is going to be a one-time event or a recurring thing, something you want to repeat, maybe with different content every time, but the same kind of format and recurring every day. Then you have to prepare for it in a certain way. If it's just a one-off event, then it's a different story, and you can do many things manually and invest a lot of time in it and then forget about it later. But if you're doing something in a scalable manner, and I hope you do, because then you're working efficiently, then you need to plan this in the right way. And then, I mean, virtual, for example, is scalable. We have 2 events a day or 1 event a day, sometimes 3 a day. And so we want to create some kind of system. That's why we selected Zoom, and we selected Eventbrite for the ticketing. And we're working with HubSpot behind the scenes, our marketing automation system, to do all the analysis of the data and make sure that the people that are registering are members of ours. If not, then we need to push more to members meaning customers. And so we took a lot of things into consideration before we started. talking about scaling it and replicating it and doing it efficiently so that we can save time and do it as efficient as we can.
I just wanted to highlight one more thing, because there's a really important question there that we get a lot. I probably didn't do Penguin justice when I said at the beginning, but one of our expertise is really in automation, right? Marketing and sales automation in HubSpot. So I know, shameless plug there. But the question is how much to automate, and in exactly to what you just said is if you're going to be doing this on a monthly basis, quarterly basis, then it makes sense to make investments in a lot of automation and making and selecting tools that really work well together. That's definitely why Zoom, Eventbrite, and HubSpot are great choices. They work really well together. But it's like looking at an email. How much, what emails should you automate? Well, if if you're sending a sales email and you want to customize every one of them, that's okay. Doesn't have to be, every email has to go through automation. But if you're sending a newsletter, for example, that's something that's worth investing in a great template. So those are the similar thought processes, because if we're talking to marketers, they have that thought processes. They should look at events in a very similar light. You want to create a great landing page. You don't have to recreate that landing page every time. You want to be able to kind of reuse it.
Just a few more tips here. I think that a few other platforms that should be noted as well, because other people may want to use them. Kaltura is doing great work with videos, and they've also partnered with Bizabo to do the ticketing. So they have also together a solution. And there are a lot of third-party companies and also publications that today will sell you a package to do webinars to a specific targeted audience. So they will sell you not just the webinar itself, which they will manage, they will also sell you a leads package. So they will guarantee a number of leads that you will get through this webinar if you do it with them. But it has to be in a specific topic. But I can give you one example of a more or less generic platform for it called Bright Talk that you can try out. I know some of our members at G-CMO are trying it out. And there are agencies like Penguin and others that can help you set up your own setup for virtual events. And I think it's very, very important, especially if you're a company that is planning to run online and virtual events ongoingly on a regular basis, even if it's once a month, that you put in place, like Perry said, your marketing automation, but also do you have the right hub to host all the content and the information about these events? Do you have your website? Do you have your blog? Do you have your app in place? So these things, I know that it sounds very basic, but some people don't even think about it. They may be a small business and they don't invest in their website normally. But now, when we're looking at online events, it's very important that you have this digital hub where all this information is centered, or your blog, for example. Now, I think the next step in planning here is to allocate roles inside your team, if you have a team. The different people take different roles in managing online event projects, because it can be a lot of work. It may be a lot less resources in terms of money, but a lot of time in terms of execution. So I would highly recommend to build like a project team for it. Now let's go to the next step, Perry. So what do you see are the benefits of online events in terms of attraction and promotion? You mentioned before speakers, how easy it is.
Yeah, I think that people, this is maybe one of the best kept secrets. I think that I realized through the last event that we put together. It's not that people are sitting around at home twiddling their thumb and waiting for someone to ask them to speak, but there's a lot more accessibility today, especially if you're looking to add value and you're being educational. People want to help other people, and they want to. And today, the most content that's being consumed is education. In HubSpot on the panel, Kip, who's the CMO of HubSpot, shared with us that their education hub, which is where all the training is gone through the roof. It's setting new records every week at how much it's being consumed, and the webinars they're putting around education are really good. So people are out there willing to share. And again, it's not a lot of their time because they don't have to travel. They just need to they're at home, they're in front of their screen, and here we are sharing and trying to add value. So that's that's something that can't be underestimated, how much you can get. I'll hint to you that we got even better speakers already telling us that they're willing to come and speak at our next event, which is unfathomable to me in the past. So that's something to be thought about. And the flip side of that is you talked about getting people to come to your people are hungry for information, whether they're trying to upskill because of the economy, they are sitting at home, or because they need to do more with less, and they need to learn new skills that they didn't have before. So there's a lot of people that are looking for education. So actually getting people to sign up and getting the right people to sign up is actually easier than maybe in webinars, getting webinars to come in the past. We saw almost 50% of signups join, our 6-hour session, which is something that there's no benchmark. I think that we have to re-benchmark in this new economy. Could be that we got in early. Could be a lot of other things. But there's a lot of, and I can even see from this event, which is I don't know how many people signed up for it, but there's just a lot of people online that are out there and listening. I hope some of you start typing some more questions, because I see some of them, but I'd like to see some more. So those are two things that you'll.
The 50 or 60% attendance now from the people that registered. So it shows it's a very high conversion rate.
Unbelievable. And so, so the actual spend, I'll even share with you, we had 951 signups for our event 2 weeks ago. We spent nothing. It was all social media, the speakers sharing, a couple of platforms gave us some free ads. So shout out to Zest for doing that for us. But it was just like, it was incredible. And I think this is incredible. I imagine that we only spoke about this event a week ago. We shared it a couple times on social media, and here we are. So I think it proves the point.
Absolutely. And I wanna add to the promotion part, because I've been working and promoting our online events over the past couple of weeks. So I've got some insights and tips for you there. So first of all, use all your own channels. I think this is clear, right? Use your email marketing, use your website, use your blog, use your social media channels, use your application if you have one. And then I'm coming up with a new term, the new earned media. There's a new earned media. Did you know?
Tell me.
Your employees. Well, it's your employees, really.
Right.
They are an important channel. And
for sure.
When you invest money and you can do PR and you can do paid media, then you have your reporters or your influencers that are working for you. But now you're doing it low budgets, then your employees become that earned media. They can take and amplify your messages and promote it for you. And then the other earned media is the speakers themselves. I know in offline and normal physical events, speakers also promote it, but they are not so heavily invested because they know whoever is holding the event is promoting it. Now with digital, everyone is looking at promoting also personal branding, like promoting themselves. And so speakers themselves are vested. They have an interest in promoting, and we prepared some promotional kits for them that we send them before the event. I know you did that too. We send them like a kit with banners that we prepared for them, with links to a Facebook event that we made and a LinkedIn event that we made, and they're all driving traffic onto our virtual platform. So we're like invested some time in thinking who are the personas that will help us promote these events without getting paid for it. And the other thing is obviously in email marketing, our newsletters that we do on a regular basis are now converted to promote these events. And we also do dedicated emails. The follow-up emails that we do to people like you guys that are listening will then have a follow-up to the next event, right? So we're leveraging and promoting wherever we can, like in every creative way that we find. So Perry, I wanna ask you about the next step, content, right? Here we are. content.
I'm just going to share one more tip that I think that
Yeah,
that if anybody's about to do a virtual event, that is, it was incredibly powerful. Is that with the speakers that you mentioned? That was exactly, that was the best. That was a great tip. They all want to do it, but they don't have time or they don't know what to write. If you write you write it for them, that make it as easy as possible. But the second one was, we had a prep session with every speaker or every group of speakers, and we recorded it. Of course, we did it on Zoom. And towards the end of that prep event, we then said, "Hey, are you cool with us using this video to promote it?" And then we'd say, "Everybody, just say why you think everybody should join your session." And everybody said it. And then we recorded, edited it, boom. It took literally 10 minutes, and you had an incredible promotional video with these big shots. So it was good.
That's right, a cheat, because you do it and then you share it with them, and why would they say no? Like, here, I edited it for you, can I now promote you and me at the same time? Of course they say yes. That's a great cheat. Okay, let's talk about content.
Yep.
I think it's obviously one of the key factors here. What's important to do when it comes to content? We're talking about like your tip now, prepping, practicing, but you had a cool example about your self-intro. Can you share that? Remember, I would link it.
Yes. So once this became like once the previous event that I've been mentioning became a real 6-hour event, I realized that probably I need to put, just like you would have at a real event, the host comes on and gives an overview or something, says something for a few minutes before it starts. And so, speech writing 101, I kind of wrote something out. And then, so this goes towards if you're going to give a speech or you're going to give a presentation, the first time you give it from start to finish should not be when you go live, which for most of us, that's what happens. You need to practice it. The more you practice it, and this goes back to like I said, 101. And the best place to practice it is in front of a camera, and then watch it. I took it one step further, and I wrote it out, and then I videotaped it, and then I shared it on LinkedIn, raw with with anybody who was willing to watch it for the 3-4 minutes and give me feedback. So I think really it's not that you have to do it on LinkedIn, but the important part is getting someone else's feedback. And I got a lot of great feedback, both public and private, which is great. And I think that's something that needs to be done even more when you're prepping for a virtual event. You got one shot at it. You want to make sure you get it. You want to put your best foot forward. So that's really important, especially if you're giving, like I said, a speech or a presentation. But also if you're doing like a panel, like me and Efrat, we also had like a prep meeting beforehand. So some of the stuff we're saying isn't for the first time. Should I be sharing that? Some of it is. So because yeah. No, I'm kidding. But I'm saying some of it is for the first time, but a lot of it we talked through so that we're not, we have thought of things before, and we have our notes to refer to.
And not to improvise too much when you're live.
Exactly.
And then plan also the interactivity part. So are you going to have chat open, polls like I did with you guys? I planned it before. And then are you going to have like breakout sessions or rooms? I know this technologically it's a little bit hard to implement, but it's possible as well. So how do you increase levels of engagement, and how do you plan for interactivity? Those are all things that you probably need to plan in advance when you think about your content. And obviously have a great presentation. Like you don't have to have slides, but just have great content. Which takes us to the during part. Alrighty, so let's look at the during part. I'll let you look at this slide for a little bit, and then we'll talk about it, and we'll, speaking of making it a little bit more interactive, I will close the share screen so they can see us a little bit more, just for a change. Which technical stuff one has to consider, Perry, when you're launching your online events, like during the event?
Yeah, the more switching or the more changes that have to happen during an event, those are your weakest links. So if if we're just if we're doing a 45-minute session on a webinar, we have a certain set of technical problems. But when you have a multi-hour one, so imagine now in 5 minutes we were going to change the panelists.
Yeah.
That changeover is really important to get planned. If you're going to have breaks in the middle, those are the places where things might break. And then if you have, people can't see, but behind us there's a host that's kind of following along and making sure that if one of us, the Wi-Fi goes off or something, that can step in and help. And what happens if their Wi-Fi goes off as well? One of the good things of having everybody virtual is that everybody's in physically different places, so the chances of everybody's Wi-Fi going down is very low, or their internet. So that's one part of it. But really, like at the beginning, I don't know if you might have noticed it, but your voice at the beginning, you had a couple of points where you were getting a little shaky. But we already talked about that beforehand and said if one of us go off, the other one will have to make up for it and do some talking and fill the gap until the other person comes back on. So the first part is just the basic technical internet the problems that you might have. And the second level up is being able to work the systems. Zoom isn't that complicated, but promoting someone from attendee to host or panelist and those types of things. You really got to practice those things and make sure they're there, and make sure that the panelists know to come on a few minutes early. Got to find them. So if you have, one of the things we didn't think about was we didn't think that there were going to be 250 people on at one time, and then 5 minutes before we're trying to promote the guy. Imagine going and searching for that person. Of course, there's a search panel and all that, but I was asking the guy afterwards, why did it take you an extra minute? He was like, I couldn't find him. So it's something that we didn't think about even when we practiced, because we practiced it.
Like you need to look for him on the list of attendees and then promote it to be a panelist.
Yeah.
So that is like a small technical detail, but it makes a difference when you're live because it takes time to do this. You got to remember, we're not like a TV broadcast production company. We're just like people at home that are not used to doing this. So you have to kind of think in advance of all the little things that may go wrong or may take time and plan for them for during.
I could tell you we even had because we had like a backup and a backup plan, but our backup to the backup plan was that we had a funny video to put on if everybody went dark except for the last person standing. If that person went, then we were done. But so but those are your biggest worries, is the technical issues, because you want to give as good experience as possible to the audience, so that they can see and hear you.
Now let's assume you had an amazing technical experience and you did everything right. Then if your content is, pardon my French, shit, then people are going to drop off in the middle. If you don't have a great storyline or a flow, I really hope that ours is okay. You'll tell us in the end, but then you don't keep the audience engaged and they won't stay with you for 1 hour, let alone 6 hours, right? And then you have to be very accurate in how you deliver the content. What do I mean by that? Sometimes when we are in a conversation with someone or in a meeting, in the way we speak, we add a lot of unnecessary words or a lot of context, or like here, when you do live in a webinar or in an online event, you have to be super sharp with your choice of words and with how you say them, because you have to keep people engaged with you, and also with how you carry yourself, your tone of voice. And look at us, the way we are positioned, the lighting, the background, like we thought about all these things before. They were part of our planning, and now during the session, this is what you're experiencing because we thought about it. So all these things, they're small, but together they add up to make a good experience of this online event. The presentation, yes or no? Should I have a slide? Because right now we're two people speaking. It's nice to see people, but at the same time, it can be boring to look at the same two people all the time. So I think you gotta like switch and go back and make sure that you keep this dynamic so it's not too boring. And then how do you increase your reach of audience during your session? So what I've done a second before we went live here is I took the Zoom link of this session, and I posted it on my Facebook event that I made for this event, so that all the people that have signed up for Facebook, but they didn't complete the registration, so they don't have the Zoom link, they'll be able to see it because Facebook really likes events. So they organically promote it really well. So once I put the link there, everyone will get a notification with the link. And then the same thing I've done on LinkedIn, the LinkedIn event. I don't know if you even know that LinkedIn has an events feature, which is relatively new. So I opened a LinkedIn event for this event, and I put the same Zoom link there. But I just put it a couple of minutes before we started because I don't want people to have access to this event before. So you gotta think of how you can increase your reach. And at the same time, I don't know if you see it, but this session is being broadcasted live to Facebook as well. Now, Mindspace Facebook page has 43,000 people, followers. And so this is an increase of reach to this nice Zoom session that may attract a few more hundreds, or I don't know how many people. We'll see after. But
I think
these are
what you just did there is exactly a good example of how to get the content. I'll give you an example by negative feedback that we got, because we got a lot of good feedback, but I think you always learn more from the failure stuff, from the negative. So when you have a really great speaker, or someone with experience, it's people are coming to hear the depth of experience and knowledge. So to tell if we were just to leave the slides and let them speak for themselves, so people would know they have to have a strategy, they have to plan before, they don't need us for that. They want to hear the stories behind it. They want to hear the drama. And so, one of the things was, and I'm not going to obviously embarrass anybody, but we had a very, one was a very strong speaker that I had a couple people say to me, I really wanted to hear some great stuff from that person. And they just gave us very high level stuff. And I was really hoping they were going to tell some more stories. Yeah. And so that's really, really important. And going into those details, like you were just going, it's like, this is how I did it one after, because people want to, I'm hoping, either they're recording or they're taking little tips from it, but it's also part of the preparation. And when we prepared, we talked through some stories. We want to make sure we tell them again during the session, so that we're sharing them and the tips that come with them. And we've got a few examples so far.
Let me remind you, here's a story you promised to tell about the HubSpot event that you participated in, and they did a raffle to get people to come back from a break, right? Can you share that?
Right. So one of the greatest things about being a HubSpot partner is, yes, if those of you have been to Inbound, that is definitely one of the best marketing events. I think it's been the best events I've ever been to. Those are incredible events. But one of the HubSpot also does what they call partner events, where they just bring in the partners like us to either to your local office. Ours is in Dublin, and it's a great event. It's very educational, but it's also a lot of fun. Obviously, it got canceled. It was supposed to be last month, and they moved it to an online forum. And HubSpot, they just know how to do things a lot better. And it wasn't that they did things that are over the top. They did little things. They were very interactive in the chat, which maybe we could learn to be a little bit more with. But the speakers somehow they must have prepared a lot, because they were looking at they were continuously talking to the chat, and the chat were almost talking to themselves. So I was in the chat talking to people in the chat, like, because these are people that I'd met in previous events. Plus, we were talking to the speaker while he was presenting. It was a very interesting experience. And then when they got to the end of the hour, there was always 5 minutes, 10 minutes. They gave break between sessions. They put a 10-minute break, and they said, on the hour, we're going to have a raffle for, it was Bose earphones, whatever it was. It could have been a $10 Amazon gift card at the same token. But it brought everybody back. You could tell everybody was back on the hour. They were there and ready to go. So it was, there were some really great features, and those are just two examples that they kept alive. And also people behind the scenes to keep the chats going. So that was really, really great from an interactive perspective. So
speaking of which, I wish I had better eyesight, because I couldn't see people's questions. I put my glasses now, and we will answer some of these good questions in the end, because we have a Q&A session in the end. But I would just say that, yes, we are sharing the recording. So, because someone... All right, so let's keep going. Let's see where we are. Okay, let me share my screen. Another slide. We're still in the during, or we finished the during? Can you see it?
Yeah, I think we went through much of it. So
okay, good. we're in the after, right? All right. What kind of analysis would you do after your online events, Barry?
So first of all, I think most people put out surveys to get feedback, to elicit feedback from the people that attended, and that's important. I think one thing we did that we hadn't done in previous events, even physical events, is we surveyed internally the people that were involved with putting it together. And it's a different type of feedback, but it's also really important that's kind of an added. So we're looking at how do we improve next time, also from a more of an operational perspective, because we looked internally. Because externally it could have looked like it was flawless, but we know behind the scenes that it wasn't flawless. There were a lot of issues that happened not only during the session but the lead up to it, and so those are really important. I gave you one piece of feedback that really stood out to me was making sure to create the stories around it, especially with high value individuals, we'll call them. And so that's from the analysis perspective, and also trying to figure out what the important feedback is and the less important feedback is. So with the physical events, there's always feedback on the food, which isn't important, but I'm more interested in the feedback on the content. So if I had choice to so it's the same kind of thing. Go ahead.
The video and the technical stuff. So yeah, it's different feedback.
Yes, and the most important question is, did you answer your why, right? Did you put this on for a specific reason? You wrote that out and said, okay, I want to do this. I want to either generate leads. I want to engage with customers. Exactly. If you're going to engage with your customers, did any of your customers show up? Did you want to engage with new audiences? Did new audiences show up? Did the right audience show up? What kind of people did they? And then it's like any other funnel, right? How many of them are top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel, MQLs, SQLs? The same questions we would ask. And, then it's, your typical return on investment. It's people less like to talk about selling, but I think the world must go on. We got to continue. So we got to look at it also through those lenses as well.
I agree. And when you look at quality and quantity, then quantity, obviously all the numbers, how many people register, how many people showed up, how many people gave you the action that you wanted them to take, etc. But when you look at quality, can you get testimonials? Can you get written feedback? Can you engage with them on chat? So you got to look at both these aspects when you do online and offline. The quality, when you do online events, the quality and the quantity. And when I talk about drawing conclusions, then I do the event. We do the postmortem every day. We have a team meeting to then analyze what kind of new actions we need to put in place based on our conclusions. This didn't work. This didn't work well enough. These are the numbers in our funnel. We need to invest more in this, in driving more people to register, or we need to talk more to our members. So we think together and we come up with a new set of actions, and we do it every day. When we have ongoing daily events, when you have it once a week or once a month, you want to do it after every event. And then how do you leverage what you came up with? Because what we're doing right now, this session, for example, is leaving us in the end with a new anchor piece of content. Now we have a 1 hour long video, right? And for content marketeers out there and for B2B marketeers, that when you do content marketing and you get a 1 hour piece of video, that's a heavy asset there. What do you do with that? How do you leverage, Perry?
So I think that you would, people remember to do what they know to do in any other platform. So if this was an hour video that you'd done in a physical event, first of all, you can cut it up. If one of us said something really smart, you could use that as a 10-second, 30-second.
I don't know if you said anything smart in this session.
If we'll go back and check after, and then we could use that 30-second video in a Facebook or a LinkedIn post. If we could write out the main points of this. You've got yourself a blog. Maybe there's a checklist that we could use as an ebook. I'm just saying, like, for I don't know what Mindspace will end up doing, but it might not be relevant to them, but for you, for any marketeer, there's a lot more that can be done, and it's not the huge investment that that you would have when you start from scratch, because you've got this content. So that, obviously the longer the event, the more work it is, because you have to kind of dive in and find those nuggets of value. But I know that that's something we're working on, and the hope is to get things out quickly, so that you're not 6 weeks after the event posting things about it. Keep it relevant, and so you can use it in your follow-up email. So if in the day after follow-up, you can obviously share the video, the recording. A week later, you might have the pointers, and the blog, and 2 weeks later, you might have maybe you have something else. So those are depending on how deep your content, how deep it went. So those are types of, and then from your learnings and your analysis, it'll give you what worked, just like any other marketing campaign. What was great about it? What sucked? And leverage that to do the next event or the next campaign even better.
Yeah, I totally agree. I must admit that because we're doing things so fast and with so little resources, I didn't get around to create a proper content campaign out of virtual yet, but we'll get to it. This is where I need to improve. And the last question I think that people are always asking me, should you share the recording or not after you have it? And that's a question that the answer is, it depends. It depends on your strategy. What do you want to achieve with that? Do you want to gate it maybe as a gated video and then get details of leads out of it on your website? Or do you want to give it for free because you want to just share the knowledge and show your expertise and educate the market? So it really depends on your goal, because you can do both, and both, there is no correct answer.
Yeah. Obviously, if you're monetizing it and it's a paid work event, paid workshop or something like that, I can understand why you wouldn't want to share the recording. Other than that, I'm a big fan of sharing either totally open or gated. If you have the investment, I think there's great technologies out there such as Vidyard and Wistia that allow you to share a video, and you can let them get some great value out of it, and then some way through the video put up a form and collect, and ask, engage it that way. I think it's a much better user experience than putting up a landing page and then, but then of course it's just a matter of investment in technology. I think those are the, again, like I said, I think if you've already taken, if it's a piece of marketing, it should be shared, as I'm sure you will do with this as well.
Yeah.
I see some questions that came up here.
Yeah, we have a lot of questions, so we've got like about 8 minutes. Let's answer them. So I'm coming closer. Let's see.
Me too.
Did you find the names? Okay, we got a question here about pricing of different platforms. I'm not sure who this person is, but I'm assuming that they meant platforms like Zoom. If they are, I think Zoom is not very expensive if you do the Pro, depending on the different features that you select. If you're talking about spot or marketing automation systems, and people have a lot of different, like a variety of different platforms you use. HubSpot specifically has a free offering for small companies and for startups. And now I think even more, they gave like more stuff for free because of the time. So you should check them out. But pricing shouldn't be very high at this point if you want to start up with online events. Like you can literally do stuff for 100% free. Like go Zoom free and go and do 40 minutes events, big deal. And do marketing automation totally free. Like Eventbrite is free for free events. So you can do everything for free and just invest your time. It really depends what you're aiming for. And
absolutely, and it goes back to that. Yeah. How much to invest is how often you're going to do it. What the quality level is, and that's definitely that's definitely a question that you need to think about. I just wanted to answer the raffle idea. Yes, it was a question that they asked. It wasn't just to show up. In fact, the HubSpot, the raffle that I didn't win, when I came back, they were asking who designed the HubSpot logo. If you ever get asked that, now you know the answer. The answer is the CTO's and founder Dharmesh's wife. I think her name is Kieran, but don't quote me on that. So just that was it. And the first person who answered that question Right, got it. um, and someone,
Got a good question here about how long can your audience stay engaged, and do you monitor how long they stay online? So I can tell you that, and it's not related to online events, it's in life in general, people stay engaged for about 2 to 3 minutes before the attention drops off. And so if you're a good speaker in general, whether it's online or offline, you have to make sure that every 2-3 minutes you surprise them in some way, in your tone, in your context, in your presentation. You do something to kind of wake people up again and then move forward. So you have to make sure that every 2-3 minutes there's something dynamic happening in your presentation or the way you present yourself or your content. And
that's
there's
something you monitor and analyze that we didn't mention before at the end is, right, how many people joined, how often were they,
right.
how long were they on for? Because you could see that at a peak you had 100 people online, but you might have had 300 unique people throughout the whole session. Just a question of how many people, when they jumped in, jumped off. But that's
correct. So you can do that in the analysis of different platforms. In Zoom, I don't know if there is a feature for it, but I can tell you that for this specific session, we had about 15% drop off since we started. So it's pretty high. It's pretty good. Sometimes you have 50%, 50, which
right.
is not very good. So, so I think in this instance, it's pretty good. There's Facebook as well that I can analyze after I get the Facebook Live results. And what is Yuval asking? Have you ever used a larger event platform with virtual booths? Oh, okay, that's a good question. There's a company, for example, called On24, rather than specifically. Okay, there's On24, for example. I know there are others. I haven't used them before, but some of my colleagues at G-CMO have used them and have recommended using them. It's basically a platform where you can host a virtual conference, meaning it's as if it was an exhibition, all graphically designed. I think it's even augmented, like a 3D augmented experience where you come in to the event and you can actually walk around between the different rooms and sessions of the conference, and also visit booths of sponsors or providers. So it's as if they're mimicking a physical exhibition or a conference in the digital world. Is it efficient? For some of my colleagues at G-CMO, yes, it was very efficient. I think it does take a lot of investment in terms of the content and the team that is sitting there to really create that event, because it's not just a one-off hour with a presentation. It's a full-on event. So you have to think about, it's as if you would do like a physical event, but just on a digital platform.
And it's relevant mostly to event producers or very large. I mean, something maybe that AppsFlyer might or HubSpot might consider, that they have like big user conferences. I see an anonymous person asked, I think it's a good question, is if you define that big names.
Yeah, it's on, I'll just write it down here.
Significantly cheaper or. So I don't have any data on the price of professional speakers. I could tell you that it was all our speakers were free, so we didn't have that issue. But it was so much easier to get names that would, you know, historically would be very hard to schedule. We could get them at short notice, again for free, and I can imagine that the big name speakers would be willing to do similar things. Maybe they won't be able to do it. They won't do it for free, but probably if before they were doing it for tens of thousands of dollars, they might be able to bring down their prices because they can't leave. You know, their options are more limited. So that's that.
We have another good question here from Fernanda. She's asking, how would you encourage the exchange between the panelists and the attendees during the online event, other than Q&A session, and or is it too chaotic? And I think that it tends to be a little bit chaotic, but a way that I think you can do it is ask people to raise their hand. You know, you have that feature as an attendee, you can click on it, raise hand, and then I see who raised hand and I can allow them to become a panelist and to speak out loud. I think that in terms of coordination technologically during a live session, it takes a bit of attention and time. And so if if I had another team member sitting next to me looking at just those things, I would probably do it. But if it's just me and I have to deliver the content and do the Facebook Live and answer your question and talk to Perry and make sense of it all, then I would probably not go for that option.
And I could tell you that it could get very chaotic when we had a couple hundred people on at one time. The way we solved that was when the panelist and the moderator were focused on the panel, and we had that person virtually next to us monitoring and making sure to pull out really good questions or really good comments, and we had a separate channel that was on a separate screen right over here, which you can't see, what they would send to me or to whoever the moderator was and say, don't mention this is a good one, or John from blah 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 said this or that, you should mention them, or you should give a plug for G-CMO or something like that. Like it's those types of things are, because as your things are going on, you may have made great notes and prepared, but you could forget. And so depending on how involved and how many people are involved, there's no problem getting support, because that someone can be on the moderating side with you. So that's
another question here from Efrat asking if I receive data about people who watch on Facebook Live as the host. I don't know. I have to check that out. I haven't gone deep into the details. I doubt that Facebook will tell me the actual people that watch. They will probably tell me just the numbers. They may keep all the fun data for themselves. So I need to check that. Efrat, you can approach me offline if you want afterwards, and I will give you more information. Is there an optimal time of day or day of the week or length for an online event, Perry? What would you say?
I historically, I got that question about LinkedIn posts.
Yeah.
In fact, I've had conversations with Yoel about that over and over again. Yoel Israel, definitely someone worth. I think there's a relevant time for you, and I think the same thing would be for a virtual event. And there's no better way than by testing. I thought that we were going to get hit because we made our event in the afternoon, evening. It went from 3 o'clock in the afternoon till 9 o'clock at night in Israel time, and half of our audience was Israel. And we did have and we were really surprised that it worked really well. And it could be just because of these times, right? It could be that in 6 months from now, when everybody hopefully goes back to work and normal, it might not be the greatest time. So I think it's about a matter of testing. And I know that's not an answer. I know if you'd rather have the answer Tuesday at 3 o'clock is the best time for a virtual event, but I don't think that there's a right or wrong answer. It's like anything in marketing: test, hack, try.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always love to do it in unexpected times and days and see what the results are. I do a lot of social media on the weekend and at nights, and most of the time it works. There is another question here. Would you suggest continuing doing online events once we are able to host physical events? Duh. Yes.
I thought I saw a question that was related to that. Are we seeing results like this because of the time period we are? Absolutely. Are we going to have to change the strategy in 2-3 months from now? Absolutely. But I think that we're not going to go back to the way it absolutely was. Are we going to get back to physical events? Probably one day. It's a long way out. But I don't think people are going to be more open to working from home because now they realize they can do it. They're more open to consuming information like this. So I think there's going to be a paradigm change, so that it's absolutely more critical that you have a virtual strategy. Excuse me.
I agree. You gotta back your physical marketing strategy with a digital marketing strategy, and online events must be part of it, even when we come back to normal. And it's still gonna be a while until it is normal, like we remember. And the Efrat here is saying that one of the things that is most important in events is meeting other people, and she's totally right. Is there a way to accommodate casual conversations well? And so that's where I'd recommend smaller Zoom sessions that are not webinar format like what we're doing right now, but rather the open Zoom session where you can host many people. When you're the host, you can mute everyone and you can then be a moderator of the call. People can raise their hand, you can allow them to speak, they will speak. I don't know, they can't speak together at the same time, it will just be a mess, but they can speak one after the other, and then they can talk to each other during chat. At least they see themselves, you know, they see each other. So that's
one of the nice features Zoom has on the regular one, which they don't have on the webinar yet, is that you could send everybody into smaller rooms, which allows, you know, to have small groups, set up small groups. One of the things we experimented with at the end of our event was we created 4 smaller, you know, four Zoom rooms, and had people go in and based on their interests, and that was pretty good. And people got to have like smaller rooms, talk together, and so there's experiment with ideas. There's nothing wrong.
Say get a room, right?
Exactly.
Zoom, get a room. Okay, I think that's it. Like, we covered a lot of questions. If you guys have any other questions, I really encourage you to follow both of us, Barry and myself, on social media. You'll find us anywhere: LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. So find us there, ask us questions, and also Mindspace, thank you very much for hosting this and hosting virtual. And please join us for other sessions at virtual. We have them every day. So thank you very much. We enjoyed.
Thank you.
Barry.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.